Good morning on this Erev Shabbat as we get ready to celebrate Parshat Lech Lecha. We're hoping that those of you that are in town could join us in Shul as we make a special prayer for Israel, and we hear from our amazing Congressman Jake Auchincloss, who's been a beacon of light in very dark times, and has reminded us that our friends and those that love us are stronger than ever. This week's Torah portion is the portion of Lech Lecha, and we read about the first Jewish man, Abraham, and his journey. And the truth is, it's been a very tough week for us Jews. You look what's going on college campuses across the world. You look at what happened. I spoke to a friend of ours who's in Tulane, a girl in our community, and if you see what happened there yesterday, literally a Hamas sympathizer beat a Jewish person with a pole who ended up in the hospital. What the words they were saying: we want a genocide from the river to the sea, stuff that are unfathomable. If you see what happened at Columbia University, where, thank God, at least someone was arrested and charged with hate crimes for beating a Jew. You see what's gone on in other places in New York. You see what the New York NYPD are telling Jews to stay away from Brooklyn Grand Army Plaza tomorrow because of the pro-Palestinian rally a mile away from Chabad headquarters where 25,000 Jews live. Would you think we would ever have to tell someone to stay away from an Israeli rally? The violence, the words of hate is unbelievable. And then when the Crimson and Harvard is making a panel to help those students that were doxxed for supporting Hamas, yet haven't done anything for the Jewish students and the fear that they have, it makes us feel sad. But this week we learn about Abraham. And Abraham was called Avraham HaIvri, Abraham the Jew. Why was he called? Why are we called the Hebrews? And in fact, the first time we read about Abraham being a Hebrew is when we read about Lot, his nephew, being captured. And the reason we're called Hebrews is because the rabbis tell us that Abraham stood on the other side of everyone else. Everyone was on one side and Abraham stood alone, a voice of reason, a voice of morality, a voice of clarity of what should be done. And that's been the story of the Jewish people for generations. Abraham was born 1948 CE, and 75 years later, 2023 CE, God promises him and the Jewish people the land of Israel. And since then, we've had to fight for our right of our existence every single day of our life. The prophet Bilam says, Am levada yishkain, the prophet of the Gentiles, Bilam says in the book of Numbers, a nation that dwells alone, uvagoyim lo yischashav, who is not reckoned with by the nations of the world. If you think about what nations in the world are saying now, people like Russia, who kill, who murder, who butcher, who conquer other people's lands, are worried about what's going on in Israel. What does proportion mean? Proportion, it's not about how many Jews they killed, which is terrible, 1,400 Jews. It's about knowing that we have to make sure this never happens again. And the only way to make sure this never happens again is eradication of ISIS like Hamas. It's not about proportion. It's about the responsibility of every government under Geneva Accord to make sure that its citizens are safe. So yes, it's painful. We're Hebrews. We're the Ivri. We're lonely. So many of you told me how painful it was that some of your friends, your Gentile friends, didn't even call to check up on you. It's a hard time. But we also have to recognize two things. Abraham sent by God on a journey, Lech Lecha me'artzecha, go from your land, Ela Oretz asher areka, to the land that I will send you. God doesn't even tell Abraham where to go. But Abraham had deep faith. And Abraham followed what God said. And here we are, 3,800 years later. And the Jews are still here. So yes, it's painful. But where are all the others? So we have to stand with our faith. We have to be committed to God, to Torah, to Judaism, to uniting closer as a community. The good thing is that unlike the 1940s, we have the Israeli army. We have the Israeli people who have united in the most incredible way and who are ready to fight for our survival. We will persevere. We will survive. The Prophet tells us, Netzach Yisrael lo yishakar. I quote it often because the Prophet promises that the eternity of Jewish people does not lie. So instead of, it's sad. It's a sad reality when you recognize that you might have been progressive or you might have been open-minded and marched for every other person, for the African American, for the Asian, for anyone who had hate, and no one's there to march for you. Of course it's sad reality. But it's also good to know the truth and to recognize it. And to be able to know that Baruch HaGever Shayiftach B'Hashem, we put our faith in God and the IDF, God's people on this world to protect the Jewish people. Listen, you see my kippah from the IDF right here. Let me tell you something. We're in the middle of reading. We just finished Noach, and next we're going to read about Sodom and Gomorrah. God has a long hand. And barbaric animals like Hamas, like ISIS, the day of judgment will come, and we will make sure it happens. There is no place for such inhumanity in society, especially not in 2023. So my friends, yes, it's Am Lavod Ad Yishkan. We stand alone. Abraham was alone. But yet, we survive, and we thrive, and we continue to build. May God bless each and every one of us to have the strength, the confidence, the positive outlook we need to overcome this. Don't tune in on all the negativity. There's enough positive things to look at. And God willing, we will celebrate and go back to Israel and celebrate the miracle that is Israel. Have a great day. Shabbat Shalom. And if you're able to join me tomorrow in Shul, about 10:40 is Torah reading. 11 o'clock will be special prayers for Israel. And 11:15 will be an address by Congressman Jake Arkansas. Shabbat Shalom.